You know, for the first time in a generation, humanity is really truly reaching for the moon again. But this time, it's not just about leaving a few footprints. It's about learning how to stay. So today, we're going to break down the one mission that makes all of that possible, the absolutely daring test flight of Artemis II.
Think about it. In the 5 decades since we last walked on the moon, we've sent rovers to Mars and incredible telescopes to the very dawn of time. But when it comes to us, well, we haven't really gone any further. That is all about to change with Artemis II, a mission designed to push 4 astronauts farther from home than any human has ever been in history. So what's the plan this time around? And who are the brave pioneers tasked with pulling off this historic mission? Let's get into it.
Okay, so the best way to think of Artemis II is as the ultimate dress rehearsal. The big, grand plan is to build a permanent human presence in deep space. But you can't even think about doing that until you know exactly how your ride handles with people inside. This mission is all about testing the Orion spacecraft to its absolute limits.
And this is the crew with the absolute perfect blend of experience to pull this off. Leading the charge is Commander Reed Wiseman, a former chief of the astronaut office, so he knows crew operations inside and out. At the controls, you've got pilot Victor Glover. His experience flying the modern SpaceX Dragon makes him the ideal person to test Orion's manual systems. They're joined by mission specialist Christina Cook, whose record-breaking time in space gives her this unique insight into long-duration flight, and Jeremy Hansen, a veteran fighter pilot who's about to become the first Canadian to ever fly to the moon. What a team! And the ride, the Orion capsule, which, by the way, they've named Integrity, is just a world away from the old Apollo command module. I mean, it's got 60% more room, which allows for a 4th astronaut and some amenities the Apollo crew could only dream of, including, and this is a big one, a proper space toilet. It's a small detail, but it makes a huge difference on a 10-day trip. But before Integrity can be put to the test, it needs a serious, serious ride to get off the ground. And that brings us to the most powerful rocket ever built for human spaceflight. So this is the Space Launch System, or SLS for short, and when this thing lifts off, this crew is going to feel more force pushing them into their seats than any astronaut in history. It is just a staggering amount of power. So let's break down where it all comes from. Well, that power comes from 3 main parts. On the sides, you've got 2 solid rocket boosters. They're basically the biggest model rockets ever built. Each one is the size of a 17-story building. Wild. In the middle is that iconic orange tank, just packed with super-cooled liquid fuel. And down at the bottom, 4 powerful RS-25 engines, the same kind that powered the space shuttle, have been refurbished and are ready to fly again. The first 8 minutes are just a violent, perfectly choreographed sequence. First, the 4 core engines ignite. Then, boom, the solid boosters fire, providing over 75% of the thrust. At the 2-minute mark, those boosters fall away. A minute later, the launch abort system on the nose cone gets jettisoned. And finally, after 8 intense minutes, the main core stage separates, leaving the crew on their way to orbit. Okay, so once they're in space, the real test mission begins. This is where they put Integrity through its paces. Now, for the first couple of days, they won't head straight for the moon. Instead, they're going to fly in this massive elliptical orbit around Earth. At its farthest point, they'll be about 70,000 kilometers away, and that's already further than anyone has been in 50 years. This orbit is the perfect training ground to make sure every single system is go for deep space. This is essentially their pre-flight checklist, but they're doing it in space. Commander Wiseman's job is to oversee the verification of all the life support systems. We're talking air, water, power. It is the most critical check. Then, they'll test every single aspect of the navigation controls and thruster performance to make sure the vehicle is perfectly responsive. And now for the most hands-on test of the entire mission. Pilot Victor Glover will take manual control of Orion. His job is to fly it like a fighter jet, turning the spacecraft and steering it towards the spent rocket stage they just separated from. Now, they won't actually dock, but he has to prove he can line it up perfectly. This is absolutely critical practice for future missions where they'll need to dock with a lunar lander. With all the systems checked out and ready to go, it's time for the main event, the 4-day coast to the moon. So they're going to use something called a free return trajectory. It's just this elegant piece of orbital mechanics where you fire your engines once, and then you essentially let gravity do all the work. The moon's gravity pulls the spacecraft in, slingshots it around the far side, and then flings it right back towards Earth. It's the same path that famously helped save the Apollo 13 crew. So the whole mission unfolds over about 10 days. After that initial checkout in Earth orbit, it's a 4-day journey out to the moon. On day 6, they'll do the Lunar Flyby, then it's another 4 days back, all culminating in a splashdown in the Pacific.
During that long coast, the astronauts themselves become the experiment. Mission specialists Cook and Hansen will lead the effort, using wearable biometric sensors to gather new data on how deep space radiation affects the human body. They'll also practice moving into an emergency radiation shelter, which is this small area shielded by bags of food and supplies, just in case of a solar flare.
At their furthest point, they could be over 400,000 kilometers from home. I mean, that is farther than anyone in history has ever been. From that distance, the Earth will just be a small, distant blue marble hanging in the blackness behind the moon, a view first captured by Apollo 8 and one this crew will see with their own eyes.
After 10 days in space, it's time to come home. And this is, without a doubt, the most dangerous part of the entire flight. You know, we've gotten used to seeing crews come back from the ISS. This is not that. Returning from the moon involves speeds and energies that are in a completely different league. It's an extreme test for the spacecraft's heat shield. As Orion hits the top of the atmosphere, it will be traveling at over 40,000 kilometers per hour. That incredible speed creates an immense amount of friction and heat as the capsule literally compresses the air in front of it. The heat shield is going to endure temperatures reaching nearly 2,800 degrees Celsius. This is exactly why the uncrewed Artemis I flight was so important. It proved the shield could survive. But now it has to do it again, and this time there are 4 lives depending on it. But if everything goes to plan, the Integrity capsule will splash down safely right off the coast of California. A team from the Navy, Air Force, and NASA will be right there to recover them. It's going to mark the successful end of a historic flight, but more importantly, the real beginning of our return to deep space. So, you see, ultimately, Artemis II isn't about planting another flag. It's about proving we have the key to unlock the rest of the solar system. This single test flight makes lunar bases, missions to Mars, and whatever's beyond that possible. It opens the door. The only question left is, what are we going to choose to do when we walk through it?